Thoughts become things. Now, if you think about this, this is pretty exciting because everything in our external world started in our internal world. Everything that you can physically touch and hold started as a thought in somebody's mind. Think about that for a second. Think about the television, the computer, your smartphone, your car, the airplanes we're able to travel on, the hotels, the clothing, the businesses. Every single thing that physically has manifested started as a thought. And so there's a 4-step process for how thoughts become things, and I want to walk you through that right here. Because if you understand this and you can really just become mindful of this on a regular basis, you'll see how the results you have in your life ultimately come back down to the thoughts floating in your head. So here's what the equation looks like. Thoughts lead to feelings, lead to actions, which lead to results. Pretty simple, right? You may have heard that before. But let's really look at how this really impacts your life. So let's look at your current results. Okay, so the results that you have, some things in life are doing really well, other things not so much. So let's take one of those examples. I want you to think of one area in life where you've had great success. Maybe that's your health, maybe it's your family, your relationships, your business. Just choose one thing just for the sake of this conversation. Now, I want you to take one step back and I want you to think about what are the actions you have consistently taken to achieve those results. Think about it. What are those actions? Now, I'll just use the example of health for a second. So somebody who has achieved a very healthy, strong, fit body, that's the result, has likely taken actions to achieve that. What are those actions? Maybe they work out every day. Maybe they eat the cleanest foods. Maybe they go to sleep and wake up at the same time every day. Whatever those actions are, those actions have led to the outcomes, the results. So for you, what are the actions you have taken in this one area of life that you've focused on, and identify those actions as being like, oh, these are the causes of those results. That's pretty cool. Now let's take one step back to the feelings. The feelings are what prompt us to take the actions. So the typical thing we often hear is, I don't feel like doing that. I don't feel like working out today. Let's just observe that statement. And I've been guilty of saying this to myself. I don't feel like doing this today. So there's a feeling there. There's a feeling of apathy, of whatever the feeling might be, right? There could be frustration, there could be anything. There's a certain feeling that is not allowed in this specific case of, let's say, exercising, to take that action. Now, in your specific situation, when we're taking the positive aspect, the positive results that you're focusing on here in this one area, we looked at the actions. I want you to think of if you can identify the feelings that you have been able to feel on a consistent basis with respect to this one area that has allowed you to take those actions. So maybe it's the feeling of excitement. Maybe it's the feeling of, man, I love how good I feel after I work out. I love how I feel in my body. I love what I see in the mirror when I exercise. And that feeling prompts you to take the action. Does that make sense? So then let's take one step back from feelings, which is thoughts. So in order to feel something, you have to be thinking something very specific. If you think of tragedy, you're gonna feel pretty crappy. If you think of how good things are and how amazing your life is, guess what? You're gonna feel pretty darn good, right? So thinking about the feelings that have allowed you to take the actions that have led to the results that you want, we come right back to the start and we think of the thoughts. So this is essentially a simple way to think about this, is what is the movie playing in your mind? Because all thoughts eventually or ultimately become visual representations in our mind. When we're thinking about something, when we are thinking of doing something, when we're thinking of the day ahead, there's a specific narrative and very specific images that are playing in our minds. We're either excited about, certain things, or we're not so excited about other things. And if you can identify, and this might be a little more challenging as we go back and back to the thoughts, is identifying what are the images that are in your mind? What are the thoughts? What are the things that are taking up most of your mental space? In this one positive aspect of your life, those thoughts are most likely positive, encouraging, and they're the types of thoughts that have led you to feel good. They've allowed you to feel optimistic. They've put you in a mood to do the things you need to do to achieve the results you've gotten. Does that make sense? So take a moment and just think through that sequence for a second. And it's easiest to start with the results and work backwards. So we're starting on the positive here because I want you to identify how you've already achieved success in life. So if I look at in my life as an example, so I'll just use the result of playing professional soccer. So that was the result. The actions was many years of dedicated training. Now the feelings, now sure, there's days where I didn't feel like doing stuff, right? But the feelings were feelings of confidence and optimism and positive reinforcement and the joy of just being outside and, beautiful grass and like the sun. I still have very vivid images of so many moments in my life playing soccer. There's just so much nostalgia there, right? And the thoughts that allowed those feelings to occur were thoughts of, this is possible, I can do this, I'm very good at this, right? I'm gonna continually get better. If I continue to focus on practicing and improving, I will get where I wanna go. And the thoughts, and again, I'm not saying there are not moments of doubt. I'm not saying there are times where you don't think you could do something. But on the grand scheme of things, the thoughts are positive, the thoughts are encouraging, the thoughts are empowering us. Because if they don't, then we're not going to get the results that we want. So that's an example just from my soccer days. So we focus on the positive. Now let's focus on an area of life that is not going too well. Again, you can choose whatever you like, okay? It could be your health, relationships, business, money, whatever it is. Focus on that result or the lack thereof as you currently want it. Now we take a step back. What are the actions that you've taken to lead to these results? Now, there's one thing I do want to mention here. Sometimes we take action, but it could be the wrong action, right? You could run as fast as you want looking for a sunset, but if you're running east, you're never going to see it. So part of action is making sure we're doing the right things. Obviously, that's why it's important to have a coach and follow the right type of plan. But let's just assume that there's a combination of doing the right things, but maybe they're not being done to the level that they need to be done to achieve the results you want to achieve. And so if we take a step back to feelings, the feelings, or let's just use an example of a lack of action perhaps, what's the feeling that's creating a lack of action? Maybe there's procrastination. Why are we procrastinating? Maybe because we feel overwhelmed with too many things to do and we can't chunk things down into the next actionable step. So in our mind, it's very cloudy and overwhelming and it paralyzes us. What are the thoughts that would lead to that? Well, the thoughts might be, I just got too much stuff to do. I don't have enough time. I'm never going to get all this done. What if this doesn't work out? And all of that leads to this snowball effect of feeling really crummy. And if we don't feel great, we're not going to take massive action. And if we don't take massive action, and obviously smart action, we're not going to get the results that we want in life. So I want you to think of a moment in your life or a time or a specific result in your life and try to work yourself back from that to the actions, feelings, and thoughts, and see if you can start to notice a bit of a pattern. Because here's the thing, is that if you want better results, we've all experienced success in life. We all have in some aspect. If you've given birth to a child, that is a major, major win. If you've graduated from school, if you played sport at a very high level, if you accomplished anything of notoriety, whether that's for yourself or other people telling you did a great job, we've all had success in life. And the nice thing about that is if we turn back and we use those as reference points, they can become the pillars for future success because we just look at duplicating what we did before. Because even though it might be a different endeavor, success breeds success. And we just want to look at the mechanics of how we got there. That's why it's so exciting to work with people who've been in the military or who have excelled in sports, because it's just, we take that individual, those actions, those feelings and thoughts that they put in those endeavors, and now we bring it into a whole new area of life. And if you are ever in doubt of, not having the results that you want, you're not too crazy about what you currently have in life, just work backwards, right? And again, the whole part of this process, this whole process is really about being aware and mindful, to really take ownership of man, I'm responsible for this. Let me give you an extreme example. So let's say you had something happen in life. Let's say there was a car accident, right? So let's say, I'll give you an example. So a couple years ago, I was driving home, minding my own business, and I got sideswiped by, ironically, a lady who is frantically trying to find parking on her way to yoga. So, how funny is that, right? Not that it was funny, but you know what I mean. So I'm driving, doing my thing, and she comes out of the blue, turns into the street, and hits the back, like almost T-bones me, but I kind of saw it out of the corner of my eye, and I sped up because I'm a good driver, and she got the back of my car. So I could blame her. I could. And if I did, then I completely give away ownership of that situation. Because here's the thing that I like, and you might be saying, okay, Yuri, well, it was most likely her fault, right? And from an insurance perspective, like, yes, it would have been her fault. But if I'm really taking extreme ownership for everything in my life, then the actions that led to that result, if I were to really trace back my steps, might have been something like I was driving too slow or too quickly. Let's just use the example of too quickly to put myself in that exact situation at that exact moment. Why was I driving too quickly? What were the feelings in my head? Maybe the feeling was like, man, I gotta get home and get some stuff done. So I have this feeling of anxiousness. What is the thought that led to that feeling? Oh man, like I still have a bunch of stuff I gotta get done today. I gotta get home. And there's this frantic thought in my head of like, I gotta get home. So this is what I'm saying. Like, even for those things that happen to you in your life, I want you to really take ownership of those and understand that they're happening for you. Because if you can understand that we have 100% control of everything that happens to us, and understanding that everything is not happening to us, it's happening for us. And maybe the for us in the example of that car accident was for me to take a moment to step back and reflect on why that happened and how I could have done something different to maybe not allow that to happen in the future. And maybe I'm blowing this whole thing way out of proportion, right? Maybe I am. Maybe it's like, hey, maybe I couldn't have done anything differently and it would have happened anyways. But I choose not to live my life that way. Because if I choose to live life where I have no control over anything, then why am I gonna get out of bed in the morning, right? Because if our thoughts, we have global thoughts, global perspectives, global beliefs. And here's the thing, just before thoughts, the one thing we haven't talked about is beliefs. Where do beliefs come from? Experiences and conditioning. We're gonna get into some of that over the next couple lessons. So I'll save that for those. But the thing is, if we truly believe that we can create magic out of nothing, if we can turn intangible into tangible, then we are now in a position of power to create anything that it is we want in our lives. Number one, it starts with being focused on that and being clear about what that is, seeing that in our minds, and being able to then take this thought through that process of feeling good, taking the right action, and eventually the results will create themselves. And it's not that what happens a lot of times is people want different results and all they focus on is the action. And it's just like action, 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 but they never take a step or two back to really consider how they're feeling or what is the narrative and the movie playing in their mind. And that's what I want to challenge you here on, is I want to really get you to think about this. And I want you to be aware of this on a consistent basis, is if you ever feel like giving up, if you ever feel like life is amazing, just notice the difference. What's the thought pattern that is causing you to feel that way? And if you can catch yourself in an instant, you can either continue down that path or you can change it if it's not empowering you. So the lesson for today, my friend, is that thoughts become things. You are a powerhouse. You're a factory of creating physical things out of intangible ideas. Isn't that amazing? Isn't that amazing? So your exercise for today as we finish off here is I'd like you to do this, is when you have a moment, is take out a pen and paper, and I want you to write down 5 things that you brought into physical existence that once started as a thought. Now, that doesn't mean like actually physically constructing something perhaps, but it might mean I wanted to become a doctor and I became a doctor, or I wanted to become a professional soccer player and I made that happen, or I had an idea for a book and I created it. Whatever those things are, write down 5 things that you brought into life that once started as a thought. And I want you to look at those and I want you to really acknowledge yourself for the power behind that. Just take a second to acknowledge how incredible that is. And on that note, I hope you have an amazing day and I'll see you in the next lesson.